The world around us is hostile to the Word of God and to biblical values, but we are called to be salt and light, to stand for truth in a decaying culture. We are not called to run from the fire, but be willing to step into the fire. God has placed you at this time in history on purpose and for a purpose. Join us as we get better equipped to address civics and culture from a biblical worldview. Welcome to Into the Fire, powered by Dream City Church. Let's welcome our hosts Allison Furno and Debi Vandenboom.
Today's topic is how nonprofits are better than government programs. And we have with us special guest Angel Barnett, who's the co-pastor of Dream City Church. And also, what is your title with the Dream Institute? I forgot to ask you that.
CEO.
CEO of Dream Institute, which is what we're going to actually talk about today. So we're so glad to have you with us.
Thanks for inviting me. This is so exciting.
Yes, we're happy to have you. So let's start with, who are you and how did you get involved in what you're involved with now?
Okay, that's a loaded question.
Yeah, just the beginning of background to start with.
I was born at 5 pounds and 3 ounces. No, I won't go back that
as far as you want.
No, just the privilege of being a pastor's wife and being a part of ministry, I think has been an amazing journey, as well as being in a businessman's home. I think what a privilege to be on both sides of the fence, to see what business people do for the ministry and how inside a minister's home the vision and the dreams are born. And when those two worlds collide, how powerful things happen, how miracles happen. God intends us to live that way. So I've had the privilege of living in both homes. Yeah. And so,
because your dad owned a business, right?
Yes,
he was a businessman. Because a lot of people may not know that.
Yes,
right?
He built apartments in Spokane, Washington, and came to Arizona in the late 80s and built apartments here. And we came to Phoenix First Assembly, formerly known, and partnered with Pastor Tommy Barnett with all things ministry, LA Dream Center, and was very, very generous, as was my brother, to the LA Dream Center, and just got behind a man with big vision, with kingdom purpose. And that's why my dad worked hard. Yeah. We work hard for what? Not ourselves. Yes, he provided a beautiful life for his family. But what he was showcasing to us is that there's so much more. Yeah. And then to get behind an amazing pastor who has such a vision but an impact. It's not a country club church. We're not here to make ourselves feel good and check the box and go to work on Monday. We live and breathe it here at now Dream City Church. And to be so outreach oriented, it's a hand up. It's not a hand out. And seeing lives change, that's why you work hard in your company and your business, is to be a part of something bigger than yourselves. That's why you get up in the morning. Otherwise, a lot of people make it, quote unquote, what they say we've achieved, the American dream, and they're still not happy.
Right.
So why not?
Right.
Because it's not about us.
Yeah.
Right.
And when you fully embrace that and experience that, in which I really have gotten a front row seat to it, I'm telling you, it can take you all the way to finishing strong. We start talking about starting out life strong. We pour into our youth and set your standards and your moral compass, but do we challenge people, as now I'm in my 50s, how do you finish strong? I think we feel we earn the right to just go, I can retire. And the most potential is in that incredible group. They built empires and they worked their whole lives and they have all this wisdom and skill set. And then they're going to sit on the bench? No. I'm seeing the most kingdom impact in those re-engaging in ministry and nonprofit service that are retired and getting back in the game. I love it.
I heard this saying one time that was the first part of your life is you learn, second part is you earn, and the third is you return. So I was like, I really like that.
That's everything.
Yeah,
that's
right?
so good.
It's fantastic.
Awesome. So what is your role at the Dream Institute and what does that all entail?
Right. So when my girls were, to answer your first question, really, when my girls were married and out of the house, I was grateful to be able to be a stay-at-home mom. I served the household, my husband, the ministry when he needed me, but that was just, my goal was to make sure I stayed at home and raised my girls. We could financially. It's really difficult for people nowadays to be able to do that. I'm seeing that in my daughters. And so that time and space when they left the house and they got married, and I'm sitting there going, okay, now what? And an amazing thing happened. And we were able to, Luke says, we have a new Dream Center. It's up in Colorado City, and we better go up there and see it. Brian Steele and Brielle Decker, and this amazing story happens, and we need to go meet these people. And when we went up there to this community, and I got to hear their stories, and they were so open and so raw and willing to share their journey. And they got on my skin. And I was like, I can't not be a part. I can't unhear it. I can't unsee it. I can't unfeel it. So Brian Steele had started the Shore Creek Dream Center with Brielle Decker, being the 65th wife of Warren Jeffs. Made a radical escape. Long story short, she found the Phoenix Dream Center. She was awarded Warren Jeffs' house. She turned those keys over to the Phoenix Dream Center and said, this is the place I needed when I escaped and there was nobody to take care of me. Brian, will you take my house? Because there's thousands of other women and children entrapped in this religious and familial trafficking ring. And we did so. So when I got to be a part of that community and see them, it impacted me. I said, Brian, what do you need? He says, well, I need 30,000 square foot of carpet because we need to remodel the Dream Center. And I come from a family of builders and construction. I'm like, I can do that. I think I can convince people to buy carpet.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, we talk about where we're at right now, but it started with one simple task. I can do one thing. I can be a part of this.
Yeah.
And I raised money to buy the carpet. And then I started to coerce contractors to come around the remodeling, and I got deeper and deeper. And I was calling Brian Steele every day.
What else do
you
you
need?
need?
Or then I started telling him what we need.
Yeah.
And then I started to become a pest, and I'm like, oh, poor Brian. But I'm like, Brian, this needs somebody to dedicate every second. And here I am, like, petitioning myself,
Right.
not realizing
Yeah.
it. So long story short, he's like, okay, I think it's you.
You're like, yeah.
I'm like, wait a minute. I just wanted to be a part of your team. He's like, well, listen, this is what I need you to do. I need you to be independent. I need you to gather a board. I need you to, that really caused me to have to learn and grow, develop relationships with people around me who helped me along the way to be birthed from the Phoenix Dream Center, but the Dream Institute stands on its own, serving the Shore Creek Dream Center community.
Yeah. And so just to kind of back up a little bit too, because maybe not everybody listening knows the story of Colorado City, and that Warren Jeffs was a self-proclaimed prophet who had a stranglehold on that entire town. And if you've ever been up there, it's way in the boonies. It's very remote, backed up against that national park
Zion.
there, Zion National Park, and he had control of the entire town, right? So. And they were marrying off girls at 12, 13, 14 years old, and men would have
A lot of documentaries on it, so it's well documented
Yes.
from their stories and their perspective. And the LDS community really likes to separate themselves, making sure that everyone knows it is the fundamental
FLDS, yes.
Latter-day Saints. So,
Yeah, and so it was polygamy and
Yeah.
child marriage and all of
Yes.
those things that were going
That's
on there.
right.
And we're going to do another episode actually coming up about what's happened in that town. Yeah, so
the positive.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the Dream Institute, so it's not over, or what you're running is not just over Short Creek, right? It's got
correct.
other organizations,
The Dreams Institute has broadened as we were able to go serve the community in Sholo, Arizona. And Living Hope Dream Center has a very straight up pro-life Dream Center approach. So we are able to take in women into our home that are pregnant and coming out of trauma, abuse, or trafficking. And just because we're in Arizona or Utah doesn't mean that we just serve women from the state that the Dream Center is in. We have women coming from North Carolina, Denver, Oregon, Idaho, and sometimes they need a destination. They need to get out of the area
Right.
that traumatized them, their
Yes.
surrounding. So I love that our dream centers are a remote place, and they are actually rural. They're surrounded
Yes.
by pine trees, and it's a home.
Right.
And the girls come in, and they feel like it's a family, and they are living with other girls and children, women and children, who are just like them,
Right.
and who are coming along in their healing.
Yeah.
And they don't feel alone, and they have a sisterhood, and everyone is in this home celebrating birthdays, first days of school, my job, and it's just such a beautiful camaraderie. And without our directors and our house parents, none of this ministry would happen, and it's just a privilege. So Dream Institute has 2 homes in Show Low. The other home is a transition home, so that is an advanced, developed part of our program. They have to have a job, full-time job, pay a program fee, have a car, daycare arranged, and we're budget coaching with them.
Yeah.
What we're doing is really advancing, make mistakes in your job under our watch. Right? So that we can help you.
A covering.
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
Yes. So we want to serve.
And so they go from the one home to the other, right?
Right. So they
that's the idea,
graduate like a year behavioral health counseling.
And that's one of the things too that I think a lot of people don't understand about pregnancy care homes is that it's not just a short, and even the program at Short Creek, right? Those are not short term.
It's not emergency housing.
It's not like a
long-term.
rehab or something where people go in for a month and then they're out, right? This is long term programs.
That's right.
So so Short Creek, you have people that have been there for years, right? Or haven't they?
They,
been?
we want to see them advance. So a
Right.
year and a half, and it's basically everyone's journey and their healing time.
And then those people sometimes come back and
Half of our staff are from being rescued.
right.
And that they are the most powerful to speak into those that are hurting. I didn't have that kind of childhood or abuse, but those that work there have come from something. So the respect, and for the women who are just coming in to speak with other survivors and see them on the other side and moving down the road of healing, that's really where it's powerful in that connection, loving them, serving them in that way.
And then at Sholo, how long are they in the
Same.
first
It's-
home? It's about a year and a half,
Yeah,
right?
some
And then
ladies might be 6 months. Maybe they just need that educational benchmark to be shored up. We're also really trying to advance our relationship with, for instance, Southeastern University in their trade school.
Yeah.
So how can we get women on a higher level of pay because they're a single income with children.
Yeah.
And so she has a job. In this current economy, is a job going to cut it? Probably not.
Right.
So in that interim, can they be online in the evening, leveling up their pay opportunity through drafting, architectural drafting, and different job skills that these great colleges that we want to collaborate with are helping us serve our residents better? That's my goal. Where Dream Institute is now and all that we've accomplished, that's great, but we cannot stay there. We
Yeah.
have to advance and serve our residents better.
Yeah.
And that's going to come with knowing that on the backside, a year and a half after graduation, we have an 85% success rate. We've learned that from the Phoenix Dream Center. Brian Steele, he set that template.
Right.
But we really want to go, our moms aren't just surviving, they're thriving so that they can show the other ladies, you can do this too.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's something that I was really interested in too, was when comparing nonprofit, our programs to government nonprofit programs, the success rate and how when we are helping people, we're bringing them out and literally changing the trajectory of their life, where I feel like a lot of times either people go back or end up dropping out of programs and kind of falling through the cracks, just a number. Right.
Right. Yeah. How do we lower the recidivism rate?
Right.
And really, the most incredible component is the church. They fill the gap of the void of the family that does not exist. The reason these girls got into this scenario,
Right.
the lack of a father figure, a family figure. That's where the church, and especially Dream City Church, they're so activistic. They come around
Yes.
our girls and our moms. And that is why President Trump 8 years ago, sent his trafficking coalition to come and view Brian Steele's best practices at the Phoenix Dream Center. They had a 93% tile success rate a year and a half after graduation.
Which you don't see that in government
Normal
programs.
is a great rate is 50%.
Right.
Wow. Yeah.
And because doing things God's way,
Right.
and dealing with letting the Holy Spirit do the surgery inside, this is what life change is about. We do social services, not to be a great social service entity. It is for kingdom advancement.
Right.
We do it gently, especially in the Colorado City community, the Shore Creek community, being abused by religion.
Right.
You love, feed, clothe, serve them without strings attached. And when they start asking questions, then the questions are on their term.
Right.
We don't push. They were already pushed. Religion caused them to turn their back on God. They were abused by religion.
Yeah.
Right.
And I feel like that's
So-
opened a whole different dimension to like that kind of ministry, because that's a newer.
That is an untouched.
Right.
You serve them very gently, and you win their trust.
And this is one of the things that in my mind, I've got like 3 questions in my head, but and I think this is one of the things that people don't understand about that is they feel like with programs that are, okay, quote, air quote, religious in nature, that you're forcing religion on people in any of these programs, right? Whether it's our food bank or the Dream Center or the Living Hope or Short Creek,
Right.
that we're pushing and requiring them. And that's not the case. What you're talking about is, that we're just serving them and loving them and being the hands and feet of Jesus.
There's an option. There's a van that's heading to church on Sunday morning.
Right.
Who's on it?
And they do have to agree to certain lifestyle standards to be there. But I think that's true of any program where you don't want them, they shouldn't be contacting.
They're going to turn in their phone because
Right.
they can't contact the John. There's going to be no smoking and drinking. That's why a lot of people don't come to the Dream Center.
Right, because they don't want to do that.
We're running into homeless people on the street. Luke did in Los Angeles, and I asked a gentleman here in Scottsdale who was on the corner, do you know about the Phoenix Dream Center? Yeah, I know about it. There's a reason.
They're not ready, right? They don't want to,
There's strict parameters and rules because we're going to serve people who really want life change.
Right. Because you can't keep doing the same things that you've been doing and think that your life is going to change, right?
Yeah, they haven't hit rock bottom yet.
Yeah. Well, and then there's those external pressures too, like you were talking about with John's or with, ex drug dealer boyfriends.
That's
there's
right.
a lot of manipulation and pressure that can be placed on them. And if they're in a vulnerable place, they're going to be even more vulnerable to
Right.
going back to
Right.
those things. And so putting some of those protections in place is really not, it's not a huge, I don't know what the word is, but like it's not a huge ask, is
Right,
what I'm saying.
yeah,
When you're
not a
talking
big
about getting that, you're changing the trajectory of your life. And so if you're willing to do that, we're not forcing anyone to do any of those things. They're
Right.
choosing that if they're going to come into that program, they're going to live by these, these parameters.
Yeah, for
and-
safety of the other
Right,
residents.
for safety of everybody. You have
for
to have those
impact
things. Yeah.
of the program,
Right.
to be licensed. There's a lot of, we like to be licensed.
Right.
Because that shows accountability.
Yeah.
But to your question and your point, nonprofits with a faith-based and those run by the state, they're radically different. We are giving same or better, and I would lean on the better side, for half the amount
Right.
per day to serve a resident. The Dream Center is able to give the same wraparound trauma-informed care services.
Right.
Behavioral health counseling, housing, job skill training for half. So why are
So
they so
half the money
threatened?
and double the success rate.
Yeah, but why are they so threatened by us?
Well, I mean, my personal opinion. This was the other thing that I thought.
That was a setup question, girl. Go.
Open
No,
that can of
but
worms.
what I mean, really, government. A lot of the government programs, they keep getting money when there's more of a need, right? So it's like, okay, there's a whole lot of crime. I mean, this is not saying that like police do this, but when there's a lot of crime, you're willing to spend more money into a police budget, right? When there's a lot of homelessness, you're willing to spend more money. And so some of the nonprofits that help people, they get more money by not doing as well because there's more of a need. Do you know what I'm saying? Like they don't
true.
actually want to, it's like,
Fix
you know,
the
it's like,
problem.
it's like the counselor that you never actually graduate and can live your life. You have to keep coming back, right? Not saying that all counselors
cancer. No, we don't, because the pharmaceutical would be out.
Right.
Right.
Follow the money.
So obviously
Follow the
not
money.
everybody's like that, and not every program is like
Right.
that. But your interest
motivating.
is to keep showing that there's a need. Whereas
Good
on the
point.
other end, we're motivated when we see
Yep.
the success stories, right? So it's like the
You're
church is
right.
motivated by those success stories and like, oh my goodness, look how great
Culture
they're
is
doing.
motivated by
and
trauma.
So, right.
And control.
Yeah.
Let's keep them down so we have their ear.
And I don't even think it's necessarily conscious. Like I don't even know that it's a conscious thing, but I do see that difference in that we're motivated by the success rates, and that's also where you see people coming back. You know, there are people that have graduated out of the Dream Center that are working at the Dream Center.
That's
people that
right.
have graduated out of Short Creek that are working at Short Creek, right?
Right.
You see that because they've been impacted by it, and there's more of that.
Their children
I
are
think.
still missing, yet they're on staff daily serving women that are healing because they themselves are being healed by
right,
serving others. And their children are still missing.
right.
I mean, that's courage
Yeah.
and bravery. And they walk through it every single day. But if they didn't have the position
Yeah.
to give back, then they really aren't living either.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
And back to your point about government nonprofits feeling threatened, how can state and like federal laws or policies affect your ability to do ministry?
Different years and different administrations, and Brian Steele's had the most years of operation to be able to show the difference of one administration to another. And I know that when these woke initiatives come into play, they push their mandates on your staffing, who you hire, and who you house. Now, when President Trump, I'll just say it, his administration granted like $13 million over 3 or 5 years, I can't remember, because they wanted Brian Steele to thrive. As soon as the next administration, current, within a few days, administration came in, all of a sudden their initiatives were mandated. That meant you had to start hiring people of alternative lifestyles, transgenders living in the same room, showering, going to the same restroom as a female that has just been rescued,
From sex trafficking.
abused by a man.
Right.
And now you have a man who says he's not, they are percentage. They need to see you housing and interacting and
Right.
collaborating
get
with
money.
Yes. So they had to send that back.
Yeah.
So the goal ultimately would be to be self-funded.
Right.
Now there's certain
And it's not just the federal level, it's also the state level. 'Cause
Well,
the
yes.
state level makes things more difficult too.
contract billing. One of the most expensive and necessary and helpful things is the behavioral health counseling. So the, Arizona Health Initiative is within access and Medicaid. Yes. So that is a driving force that you're paying hundreds per hour per resident. So the contract billing, there's some scandals out there right now with our current governor that is being investigated by the AG's office. They're calling it pay to play.
Right.
So a lot of there was a moratorium for a while on all the contract billing. So you're basically doing the government's job for them. You're having the counselor come in, and so there is it takes years to get a contract, and then you can bill for that counselor's time that you, the organization, are absorbing. I don't even have, the Dream Institute does not have contracts right now. We pay outright for every single resident to make sure they have counseling and equine therapy. I love being off the grid because that you can run independent. But at Brian's level, where he has so many
in the
more,
city, yeah.
it's over the top. So there have been scandals where people have had sober living houses and they bring people in, not sure how they got licensed, but they were contract billing for people that they didn't care if they were going through they were drunk and smoking and they were just contract billing for those people.
Right.
Well, so that put a moratorium on the contract billing. Then there was a foster care organization here in Arizona that gave to the Democratic Party 6 figures and Governor Hobbs her. And when that happened, 11 other nonprofits were denied contract
And all went to that
billing
one.
period at all, and one was allowed to have it and actually got a hike. So that interaction there is being investigated. So you say all that to say, you know, it would be great if we all could work nicely together.
Right.
And I think the world that we're heading into now for the next 4 years is going to be favorable, obviously, but you don't want to get too comfortable in taking those federal funds.
Right.
Because we're going to get whiplash in 4 years, maybe, if that
Right.
happens.
Taken away a moment's notice.
Right. So the reason that institutions like universities, Liberty University, has a $6 billion endowment, guess what? No one tells them what to do.
Right.
When are we going to start being independent financially so that
It doesn't matter what
that's the goal?
Right. So some of the things would matter, like with the regulations and the things that you have to abide by to operate as, you know, a care home or to operate as those things are at the state level, right?
Yes,
They're
you're under
the rules.
inspection for your menu, and I think those accountabilities are great.
So it does, but I'm saying it does affect, even if you had all the money in the world, you would still have to deal with them to a certain degree, but you would have to deal with them less.
Yes.
If you have the funding. Then it's one less thing that the more things that we can operate on our own
We
without
could hire
having to have the
private
governor.
counselors and bring them in, and
Right.
all of that could just be paid
Yeah.
for. Yes, there's still housing and licensing and property and all
Right.
that you have to infuse into the
Right.
state's
And so, and I
mandates.
think that's something that people don't even think about, like when they're electing people, whether it's at the federal level or at the state level, you know, some of the things like the attorney general or like the governor or the secretary of state or those offices who appoints who's going to be in charge of foster care. Okay, that's going to affect Thrive and what they do. Who's in charge of
been
different things,
devastating
right? It's going to
for them.
affect what we can do.
Yes.
And so some of those offices that people don't really pay attention to, or they're not thinking about how, not just with money, but in the way that they're allowed to operate
That's
and
right.
the kind of rules that are put in place,
Yeah.
how much those things really can potentially affect our ability to do ministry. And it really can make it a big headache. We've seen some of that in the last couple of years,
Yes.
like at the state level with our governor and at the national level with the president, that we've had some major problems in trying to just do ministry, just be free to do the work that we're successful at doing.
That's right.
Right? Because we
right.
have the success rate to stand on,
That's right.
but they're
Years.
getting in the way. Yeah.
They're getting in the way. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of red tape that we could improve our service, especially in the demographic of the population of the underage traffic victims.
Yes.
That is when you are basically married to the
government,
the
yeah.
government, because you're a foster parent. You are taking them in.
So that would be the juvenile sex trafficking program,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah.
The amount that it costs to serve them is why people don't even dare go. Very few people go down that
Right.
path. And so there could and should be a world where we cut some heavy restrictive red tape. I think we could really advance and take in all the children that are underserved, the most
Yeah.
vulnerable. Dream Institute takes in moms and children. So they have to come in as a family unit, which is great because they don't get separated and sent to different organizations. They can come in and heal together as a family. We love that. But there are plenty that the frontline officers turn in and say, we've got a 13-year girl that just showed up, and you take her into your program. What it costs to be licensed, it is like, I think Brian says $200,000 a child. Why?
Right.
Because if we could skim that, let's serve more young victims. Why are we making it the most difficult
complicated,
to? And that's the red tape we need to have someone speak into on a national level. Say, hey guys, do you realize how difficult it is to serve this population,
Right.
there's no logic in it.
Right.
We can do more.
Yeah.
And so that's what I hope for
Yes.
in these next 4 years. That's what I hope to be able to say, hey, listen, guys, we can make a huge impact by cutting some red tape that maybe you don't realize is there.
Yeah.
Let's listen to those like Brian Steele, who've lived it every day. Let's let him tell his story.
Right.
And let's start rolling back some of these ridiculous policies, clip the red tape, fund us, and get the heck out of our way. Because we're going to make a big impact.
Right.
Yes.
Well, and
Seriously.
we have the success stories and the success rate to prove it. Yeah. Yeah.
And we could have 4 times that.
Right.
Yeah.
If they'd get out of our way.
Well, and even bringing awareness to the church, I think that your elected leaders make policy decisions that even affect our ability to do ministry too. Like, I think a lot of people don't even realize that sometimes. So
They don't think about it. Yeah.
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 I
So how can people get involved?
Yes,
so
that's what
let's
my next
look.
question was leading into.
One action item that we have is to really start thinking about this as we're coming up. So it'll be 2 years. We'll have not a presidential election, but state elections.
Okay.
We in Arizona will elect a new governor and an attorney general, secretary of state. We need to start looking now and thinking about it in those contexts, right? Of who's going to be helpful to those kinds of programs and supportive of the ministry that we do here, as opposed to who's going to be blocking things and trying to force us to house men in with human trafficking victims,
Our
right?
governor is going to be important.
Right?
Yes.
The governor's huge, and so is the attorney general. Because
Yes.
you were talking about, okay, so I was thinking about this when you were saying it. The attorney general, who is horrible in Arizona, is supposedly investigating the governor. Well, they're buddies. They're not going to do anything. Like they're
love
not
that
going
he's
to.
yeah.
She's
So-
not going to. She's not going to find anything. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Whether it can be blatant, because I've seen it before in some of the abortion stuff, where it's like, okay, the AG.
We're gonna
just
pretend to
like, oh,
slap your
It's just
hand,
there's
but we're not
nothing
gonna-
there. It's like,
Yeah.
what about all these documents that we have? Oh, that's nothing.
What is don't see
right.
that.
Yeah.
It's like I see
over
nothing.
here.
Yeah, right. So those things really are very important. Those were my glasses falling on the floor. Don't mind me. But those things are very important. So that's one thing that we need to be paying attention to what's coming up in 2 years.
Right.
Also, how can they get involved in either helping, because these things are out of town. They're in rural
Right.
areas, but how can they help donate, be a part of what's
Yeah.
going on with Dream
You know,
Institute?
in Short Creek community, we call it Short Creek. It's on the border of Utah, Arizona, and you know we have a mission house there. That's a great opportunity to come
Yes.
and be a part of a team. Even if you
Short-term
were a
missions, right?
business,
Yeah.
you could come as a team and learn and see and serve. We have so many single moms who need their house cared to. We have hundreds and thousands actually of hours of community outreach. So not only are we operating a center serving people, we serve the entire community. We have been entrusted by the community because we live with them and we serve them. And we are so proud.
Yeah.
We tell the past because it shows how resilient and how incredible their future is. So coming up and having a mission team and being a part of that, that's on the table.
And so what's the website
The
for
Short Creek Dream Center, that website would go .org. That would allow you to contact our missions team to have interaction, to participate. The Sholo Living Hope Dream Center. Our moms, to get into the transition house, they have to have a car. So a lot of us, sometimes we consider turning in our car and leveling up, but maybe consider getting a tax write-off, because when people donate cars to us, I'm able to say to a mom, listen, you can now go into the transition house, you can go to work,
Right.
we can have a predictable, sustainable future here. And we're working on a model to try to have a leased program, because when you put them in a trade school, enlist them in trade school, they're a college student, and then when they're poor credit now, we can get them on the radar for maybe leasing a more predictable,
build some credit, yeah.
vehicle. So, and the Dream Institute, that's a place. Certainly, the funding is very helpful because we are so remote, and we're 6 hours north, and we're 3.5 hours northeast, and we're growing and we're developing. But yes, we have loved having educators, contractors, people of all walks of life and skills. We would not be where we are without people. offering what God talented them to do. We do not go anywhere alone. It takes a village, and it's fulfilling. And we don't want to hold all the joys of life to ourselves. We want to come alongside. If you have a skill set, people have donated, books and
or a business that you can donate some kind of labor or items or things.
The golf tournament is coming up at the end of February. We're looking for companies to collaborate and come and meet other corporations and companies. Russ Lyon is getting involved, and all these amazing Tradition Bank, and it's a great meet and greet, but it's all coming together for a common cause, a 2-day, 2-man scramble. So there's a golf tournament available.
Is that on the Dream Center? I mean, the Dream Institute?
They could just contact all of our leadership. Hey, I'm interested in. We'll reach
church.
out. Yeah.
And the thedreaminstitute.org is the website to get to the Dream Institute. So if you want to get on there and find some things too, and yeah, that's so good.
Perfect,
I love it.
yes.
Thank you so much for coming
Thank
to talk
you
to us today. We appreciate having
for
you.
asking me.
Yeah, so it's been great. Thank you for joining us on Into the Fire, powered by Dream City Church.
You can listen to this podcast on Apple and Spotify and follow us on social media. Find all the info on the show notes. To learn more about Dream City Church, visit our website at dreamcitychurch.us. Thanks for listening.